Article 2 on public service values, and in Article 238, sub-article 1 of the Constitution. And all those values give KDF its place. So let me make it here that I think it was wrong to bring Kenyan defense generals to run civilian authorities like NMS, have a devolved function, like Kenya Meat Commission, which will need to look at it, that you cannot just wake up one morning and remove a general from the barrack and bring him. Mr. Speaker, if that is not checked, then you'll find a general who will become the clerk of the National Assembly, or the registrar of the judiciary becoming a general or a colonel. And I think going forward, not only the military, Mr. Speaker, the DCI personnel, the intelligence officers were put everywhere in our country in the last 4 years. And I'm sure the new administration, when it is completely constituted, we will ask everybody, particularly if I speak for KDF, everybody to go back to where his place and space is within the Constitution. If your place is the legislature, be at the legislature. If your place is at the barracks, be at the barracks. If your place is at the National Intelligence Service, be at the National Intelligence Service. Unless you're called to do extra service in the course of duty of the nation.
Amisi, number 1, Daud, Mishi, and Kosing. You are a regular host of the military.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I thank you, Chair, for giving me the first opportunity, at least. To the nominee, you have a background of politics. Maybe you got a good part of your life. You've been in politics. And we've known you to be loud, cacophonous out there when there is national issues. You are loud and sensational. I've used that word cacophonous because that is it. And the position you are going in is a docket that requires people of calm demeanor. People, is a docket that is shrouded in secrecy for the good of the nation. But here you are an individual who always wants to talk about something of national issues. Are we going to see a more calm Duaele for the good and the security of our nation, or you'll still talk out there? In some cases, we may also have a slip of the tongue and take us to war. It happens.
Thank you, Chair and Speaker. First of all, congratulations to the nominee for defense, Honorable Duaele. And I want to agree with you. You are first a Kenyan and later a Somali, because I'm first a Kenyan, then a Mumeru, then I'm a nation. I want to ask you, Honorable Duaele, because if you are approved as the Minister or CS for Defense, KDF always does recruitment every other year. But to get into KDF, you have to part with a lot of money. There is corruption, there is bias, there is discrimination. How will you ensure that that is stopped and meritocracy is there? The second thing is about buying or military hardware. We have not been to war for ages, I know. We're just giving peacekeepers. But our budget for military equipment is always there in the budget. So are you, when you come in, will there be some rationalization or reduction in buying military hardware so that we can reduce that budget to go to the hustlers, as you always say? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and for giving me this opportunity. And as you said rightly, I'm a host of KDF. Allow me to ask the nominee, Honorable Chair. Honorable Duaele, of course, we have been with you in Parliament and as our leader of majority. But what do you think the President saw in you to nominate you to defense? Not any other thing. Not finance. No. What is it that he saw?
Isn't that an unfair question? That question should be asked.
No, not really. No, it's not unfair. He's capable, Honorable Chair, to handle that. He's capable. Not really. He's capable. Number two, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Nominee and Honorable Duaele. There's this notion in our security that you only quell insecurity or cat rustling using military operation. And there's something you have been talking, Honorable Duaele, very passionately on extrajudicial killing. Very passionately for the years I know you in Parliament. In my view, Honorable Duaele, military operation, which of course now, as you know, it's in Tiati and other places, is also extrajudicial killing. And it has never brought peace. This is a fifth government. We have had operation in that area for all the 5 governments. With you coming, Honorable Duaele, and you know extrajudicial killing, which this military operation is doing to innocent Kenyans, what will you propose, Honorable Duaele, that is different, that will bring peace, harmony in the entire region, and not to militarize people, and not to bring extrajudicial killing in the name of operations? Thank you, Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Duaele.
Chair, one left.
Oh, yes, there is. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My question is on counter-terrorism and security. This is about the dilemma of our troops in Somalia as Kenya continues to be hit by the Al-Shabaab. And the reason sometimes people say it's because our troops are in Somalia. So my question is, how do you intend to balance between our national security and human rights issues in terms whereby we keep on losing our soldiers? Again, we keep on losing Kenyans through so many attacks by Al-Shabaab. The Westgate, Dusit Hotel, Kikambala, U.S. Embassy, and so many others. That is my question 1. My second question, I want to put a reference from a reading from Major Retired Lucy Wairimo, who is a celebrated military psychologist. He has worked in the Kenya Defense Forces for almost 11 years. And his reading, he has stated that there is a systematic oppression, stereotypes, attitude, prejudices, biases, abuse, and there is also sexual harassment and abuse of women in the military. And this is brought up by the so-called obeying the chain of command. That has intimidated the women who are soldiers in this country. The women don't have a forum to talk about this sexual harassment. Anytime you talk about it, you're intimidated, you are given a transfer, you are demoted, and so many other issues. So how do you think you're going to put some strategy to ensure that women soldiers are not violated in terms of their rights, that women soldiers can also enjoy when they're in that working environment? And I'm saying this because there are so many cases whereby women soldiers have to run away to safe places, or rather to the centers where they can get some intervention. To finish my question, I want to say, are you intending to review the allowances, or rather the welfare of our gallant soldiers who go for peacekeeping mission? Some are injured, some are killed, the families don't get compensation, the processes are just too long, it is hectic, and so many challenges. The mental health cases, what we have witnessed right now, so many gallant soldiers, they're committing suicide, killing their families, killing themselves. So what are you going to put in place to ensure that even mental health issues are going to be addressed in the Kenya Defense Forces? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
You have violated the rules, but I forgive you. You should be asking just one question. Honorable Duaele, you can answer those four.
Honorable Joel, Speaker, let me start with the Honorable Amisi. I don't know what he meant. I mean, I do and speak based on the work I do. So when I'm the leader of majority, when I'm a member of parliament, I speak, and I speak my mind. When I become the Minister for Defense, if this House approves me, I will speak the way a defense minister is supposed to speak. If the President later changed me to the Minister for Sports, I will speak the way a Minister for Sports is supposed to speak. So I am a veteran, and I think I can do that. So you have nothing to worry. Don't worry about my demeanor. And I'm sure since I was nominated, I have started behaving like a Minister of Defense. So I'm sure you have not heard about me unless I am on the floor of the House, Mr. Speaker. The Speaker, Honorable Dawoodi talked about recruitment and corruption. Yes, I agree, and I have can confirm to this committee it has been coming to the floor of the House every time there is a recruitment of KDF, either through a statement, through a motion, through a committee hearing. And I think KDF has been very, very hard on this. They have been sensitizing the public, telling them don't lobby, don't canvass, don't pay. And at the moment, there are about 7 officers and 16 service men and women who are facing court cases, and 4 of them have been charged. So it's a matter KDF takes it very seriously. Even a number of people who are recruited with fake certificates, if they are found in the middle of the training session, they are handed over to the Anti-Corruption Commission. On military hardware budget, yes, we must at all times show the military posture. Threats, external threats are increasing. They are changing their mode. We have cybercrime. We have new technology. And I think KDF, like any other defense forces, must be at the level that they can defend, protect the independence, the socio-economic well-being of our nation, and the freedom of our people. For them to do that, and that is a function given to them in the KDF Act and in the Constitution, for them to do that, they must have the capability and they must show military posture at all times within our region and within the continent. So we will invest more, and I think this House, when it's called upon for more budgets for military hardware, Mr. Speaker, I think we need to look at that, because external threats are very, very important. Honorable Posing, the Speaker said, I think that question, if you get an opportunity to somewhere with the President appointing authority, ask him why you chose Honorable Duaele to go to defense. That is the prerogative right of the appointing authority. If I now start saying other things, I might lose my job. So I don't want to go into that area. It's above my pay grade. Extrajudicial killings, Honorable Posing, I agree with you. Mainly what's happening within the National Police Service. And you have seen the action that the President has taken. It was one of our key things in our manifesto, that never again will the people of Kenya be butchered like rats. Those men and women who are in charge of the security, their work is to protect and defend lives and property of our people. Mr. Speaker, our judicial system is so robust that even on terror-related, there's a specific piece of law on how to deal with the terror suspects. On other Kenyans, it's well documented. So there is no lacuna in law. There is no place our security agents, whether the military or the other, the National Police Service, can use to kill. And Mr. Speaker, it is very, very, Chairman, it is very, very hard the last 3 years when you see bodies floating in rivers. And I want to say it here, that on one Saturday morning in November of 2021, in my constituency, we found 17 bodies floating in Tana River, because as the river goes downstream, the bodies come up. So I want to thank the President for cracking the whip first on the National Police Service that all of us must protect life and property. The sanctuary of life cannot just be done away. And our military, and that's why I said our military must follow the law, must follow the Constitution. I have said it on Article 10 on national values, on Article 232, Sub-Article 1 on public service, and on Article 238 on values on how they should handle civilian population. And the Speaker, in fact, the National Security Organ, I think in 239, it says, Sub-Article 4, it says is subservient to the civilian rule. So even the National Security Organ cannot order extrajudicial killing. So, Honorable Posing, I know in where there were in the pastoral areas, a lot of people died, sometimes during operations. That will end under President William Ruto's administration. And Honorable Mishi, yes, terrorism is a threat. We went to Somalia in 2011, and in 2012 we became part of AMISOM, and now they are called ATMIS, African Union Transition Mission in Somalia. We are not the only ones. We have forces from Uganda, from Burundi, from Djibouti, from Ethiopia, from Sierra Leone. And we have a 700-kilometer borderline, land only, with Somalia. We have to protect our people from the threats of Al-Shabaab and ISIL and Al-Qaeda. But at the same time, we must also protect the human rights of our people. So I think we are in Somalia. We don't want to stay long like other countries. There's a timeline. But we must make sure that we hand over and leave Somalia when we are safe, and when they are safe, and when they can take charge of their country. On the women issue, I think that's a matter, if there's evidence, I think women have really been integrated into the defense forces more than any other country, Mr. Speaker. In 1999, I think, President Moi disbanded the Women's Service Corps. The women were discriminated. They were called the Women's Service Corps. And President Moi said, we want the women to integrate into all the sections of the military. And today we have a Major General, Fatuma, a lady who is in charge of the academy in Nakuru. Mrs. Chairman, I also had to engage robustly with the head of legal in the Ministry of Defense, is a brigadier and a lady. So women have really been integrated. If there are other issues, like in all other sectors, I am sure there is a committee of this House, Defense and Foreign Relations, with the competent members. That matter can be raised, and then I will be, if this House approves me, it's a matter we can address. Review of the salaries in peace, I think that I can deal with is a serious matter. You know, as the animal called SRC, already as a member, as a city, I'm also a member of Garissa Township. We already have a problem with SRC. So I don't want to go into salary review. Maybe if this House gives me the opportunity to sit at the defense headquarters, I can look at what is the current status in terms of salary and remuneration. But I think our men and women in uniform, both in the military and the police, and other state security actors, they need good housing, good salary, good equipment in order to protect our people. Then finally, on mental health, yes, there is the KDF and the Ministry of Defense have invested heavily. We have a wellness center in Langata. They're building another one in Mariakani. It's being renovated. There are many psychologists who have been employed now. Our clergy, our religious leaders in the army are in every unit of our defense forces. to counsel their families. And that is an area I think our defense forces, Mr. Speaker, have done very well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next round, Owen Bayer, Kano Raso, Mere Mase, and Wakili Morugara.
Can I start? Yes, thank you very much, Speaker and Chair. The Honorable Duaele, our nominee for Defense, it's in public domain that procurement in the military has always been shrouded in mystery. And reports of the Auditor General have always shown that. As you, if confirmed, how will you deal with this issue so they bring transparency and accountability and remove the opaqueness in the Ministry of Defense or in the military? If you allow me, Mr. Speaker, I would also say this, that the military has been patrolling the roads from Kiunga and Lunga, the coast. Especially, you find a lot of roadblocks that are being mounted by the military, especially at the coast. When I asked about this, I was told there's an executive order, there's something that is unacceptable. It is only in the coast where the military stops vehicles, stops citizens and asks them to produce IDs, and if you're not producing an ID, you are bundled into a military vehicle. And yet you believe that military should do what is its mandate in the Constitution. How are you going to stop this so that the people at the coast live like any other Kenyan without having to be stopped by the military? I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Duaele, I invite you to Article 241, Sub-Article 3, Sub-Article C, the deployment of KDF in areas to restore peace and stability. That is in any part of Kenya. Whereas the issue of internal security is largely the domain of the police forces or NPS. You coming into defense and also from pastoral communities that are largely affected by this instability and unrest, do we see you likely to demand for more involvement of KDF in such scenarios? Just a subsidiary, you come from the north. Although somebody said Somali, but I don't believe he's Somali. You are Kenyan. Looking at the appointing authority and just thinking out of the box, are we likely to see that you are going to play much a bigger role in the Greater Horn of Africa in terms of peace and security along Kenya's eastern and northern borders? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Next.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, allow me to revisit the issue of recruitment. In fact, while I was coming here, I received a call from one of my constituents asking me to ask the nominee what it is that you are going to do differently when it comes to recruitment of soldiers into KDF. Because, Chairman, the truth is the concern of majority of the Kenyans who are hustlers is that they have had to sell their pieces of land. They have had to borrow even loans to secure placements of their sons and daughters into KDF. So the nominee for this position, if we approve you, what is it you're going to do? Are you going to change the design, the manner, the design in which these soldiers are recruited? And my second concern again is on our level of preparedness. Kenyans are concerned. What is it that we cannot deal with this issue of cattle rustling? Rustlers from neighboring countries attacking our people within our own territory. Yet we have KDF. What are you going to do to bring to an end this insecurity, especially in northeastern regions, once and for all? Thank you.
Thank you. Moruvera.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Nominee. He's a nominee. Nominee. Kenya has one of the best armies. Let me use armies, whether defense forces or whatever. I mean, their reputation is extensive. And this is the reason why we are invited constantly to go and keep peacekeeping missions all over the world. We've gone all over. Number one, apart from that reputation, which possibly brings us pride, what other benefit do we get from these peacekeeping missions? Because we are lucky our army doesn't go to war, apart from when Somali asked for it, and later we became a peacekeeping force. Number two, we know very well that our army soldiers are very well trained. They are professionals, very qualified engineers, doctors, and other professional fields. Do you ever intend to try and diversify what they do so that when they are not out there keeping the peace, we actually have them here doing development work? Like they are doing roads for us, they are doing bridges for us, and in fact offering even medical services in hospitals where there are no doctors, because we feel maybe this is a better way of making use of them when they are not actively involved in matters combat.
Yes, Honorable Duaele.
Thank you, Chairman. Honorable Owen Bayer talked about procurement in the military. I will bring your attention to provisions in the PFM Act and in the Public Audit Act. And Honorable Wandai will, as a former chair of Public Accounts Committee, will agree with me. There are certain provisions in the PFM Act and in the Public Audit Act that give leeway to the procurement of particular services and equipment by the defense forces. And it is because we are in a very competitive world, so we don't want to expose our military hardware to our competitors. So even the Auditor General has certain leeway, what to audit, what are these, how do they procure equipment. I think that the law protects, but other jurisdictions, Mr. Speaker, like in the U.S., where the Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations are vetted, and because what they'll discuss with certain institutions, the intelligence, the military, is very privacy, is not something for public consumption. So I think we will, and still I agree with Honorable Bayer that even when the law provides that leeway, we must account for each and every coin of the peoples of Kenya's taxes. And I can assure you that that will be done by the new administration of President William Ruto, and if this House gives me the opportunity. On the roadblocks, it's not only in coast, it's also in northern part of Kenya. And these roadblocks are manned by multi-agencies. Sometimes the military is there. Yes, and I agree with you. There are certain times where human rights abuses take place. These roadblocks are supposed to be not permanent. They're supposed to be based on intelligence, and they're supposed to be based on looking for a particular person. But at times they are put there, and I am sure the National Security Council, the Kenya Defense Forces Act, the National Police Service Act, all these acts are guided principally by the values in the Constitution. I mean, this is a democratic country. In fact, for KDF, it says in the Act, they must at all times defend and protect the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is wide. It talks about human rights, and all this. So, Honorable Baya, I don't think if this House agrees with me that those roadblocks will be roadblocks with a purpose and not to disfranchise and affect the human rights of the people. I am also a victim. If you drive to Garissa, you'll find those roadblocks. Those roadblocks, just like the way the president dealt with the men and women who were involved in the extrajudicial killing, I'm sure even those ones who are now manning roadblocks with the new IG coming, if both houses approve, things will be different. Kanoraso, yes, you stated the Article 241(3)(c) is where there is a conflict, there is insecurity in our country, and KDF is called upon. It is not my powers to send KDF to internal. That is a function of the National Security Council, chaired by the President. I'm just a member. The minister, if this House approves me. So I think that is a function of the President to call for. But why the framers of our Constitution has put both in letter and spirit Article 241(3)(c) is to make sure that where the insecurity, the cattle rustling, as Honorable Emase is talking about, that is a provision in the Constitution. And I think because the KDF have enough manpower, they have enough firepower, they can deal with and make sure as they protect us from external aggression, they'll also protect internal insecurity that are found in some parts of our country. Honorable Raso, yeah, will you be involved in the Greater Horn of Africa? Absolutely. The Minister for Defense cooperates not only in the Horn of Africa, but within the East Africa. There's the East Africa Council of Ministers of Defense. There is IGAD, where and my speaker was a long-time foreign minister. So you'll find me with the Minister of Defense of Ethiopia, if this House approves me, with the Minister of Defense of Somalia and South Sudan and Uganda and Rwanda and Burundi. So that is a mandate that the Constitution gives to the Minister for Defense. Honorable Mary, I must say, yes, I agree with you, but we must also find a way of dealing with the conmen. Before the recruitment, KDF says, please don't canvass, don't lobby. So KDF can only deal with its officers. And I've said 7 officers are now facing court martial, 16 servicemen and women. 4 have been convicted. So how do we deal with the people who are the in-between brokers? We must also bring the police, because even the recruitment is based on sub-county, supposed to be fair, equitable. It's not supposed to discriminate. It's supposed to cater for all genders, according to the KDF Act. So we must deal with the brokers. Then KDF, the Defense Ministry, will deal with its officers who are engaged in corruption during recruitment. My good friend, the member for Tharaka, asked me about peacekeeping missions. I think peacekeeping missions, not everybody gets it. Why Kenya has gone to many peacekeeping missions is because of its professionalism. That's why today if you go to Namibia, Kenya is respected. Today if you go to South Sudan and many other countries, if you go to Sierra Leone, if you go to Liberia, you'll find them there. They're doing a good job. We paraded them during the KDF day, particularly in dam construction and in water borehole drilling and in healthcare. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Have a chance.
Yeah.
Don't emulate Mama Mish.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to ask the nominee that the nominee has served as the majority leader in parliament for many years. Actually, he holds the record of serving the highest number of years as majority leader since the new constitution came into place. And for that reason, many bills came through his name to the National Assembly, Mr. Chairman. But there are times when bills that were draconian in nature came through his hands. And they were very draconian in the bills themselves, and he also implemented them in a draconian manner. Example of those bills are like the Security Amendment Bill in 2014. There was also even the issue of the appointment of the Inspector General. The first Inspector General was nominated in a manner that had public participation, where the National Police Service was allowed to advertise the job, then shortlist people, then take it to the President. But in his own wisdom, the majority leader amended that Act of Parliament of the National Police Service and gave fiat to the President to appoint the Inspector General. There was the cybercrime. I served with him very closely in Parliament for the last 10 years. So does he regret that those draconian laws and that draconian culture now that freedom has arrived in Kenya? And the last one, Mr. Speaker, is there are people being harassed at the Lake Victoria by Ugandan Defence Forces, fishermen. Fishermen are unable to fish in that area where we represent. The Ugandan forces are all over the lake. What plans does he have to defend Kenyans or fishermen in nature, not only pastoralists and camel herders?
Honorable Duaele, congratulations. And from what I'm hearing, you are ready for the task. According to the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, there is a plan for the establishment of a fund for foreign soldiers. What are your thoughts on the same? How would you establish a contributory fund for foreign and terminally ill officers? Because you know they are the people who are fighting on our behalf and they are really suffering.
Ferdinand, Nominee, I want to ask a question. Sometimes back, I think I saw a hunt, and that I didn't go there to find out. I think some administration was embarking on building the wall, protective wall between Kenya and Somalia. I don't know how far they've gone. Given the current, even if it is to continue, given the current technology, is that project really viable? Was this a waste of public fund? Because, a wall is a wall, but technology now, the current technology, you don't have to have the wall to defend yourself. What was the next? Kikale?
Asante sana. Napongezi Bwana Duaele kwa kuteuliwa kwa hiyo nafasi. Tunaomba pengine ukisha toka hapo utaweka. Ni ile tunataka, umekuwa kielelezo kizuri kwetu. Lakini niulize hivi ndugu yangu Bwana Duaele, kwa mafunzo ya kijeshi. Katika parliament ya 11 nilitumikia kamati ya administration. Na kule wanachukua kiwango ambayo wanafundisha askari kutoka kiganjo peke yake. Na unaweza popote utaingia unaweza kuwa mkubwa kabisa katika polisi bila, lakini kwa jeshi kuna vitengo tofauti. Unaingia, kuna wale ambaye kwa njia moja ama nyingine pengine hukusoma ama wazazi wakupata pesa za kupeleka shule, hukusoma vizuri, hukupata. So wanaanza, ukianza kama askari wa kawaida unaenda mpaka senior sergeant, na hapo ndio mwisho wako. Na pengine hapo ndani kuna askari wanajeshi wazuri sana ambayo wangepata nafasi ya kuendelea kuwa captains na mameja na nyadhifa zingine katika jeshi. Pengine ungeweza kutuambia kuna mpangilio yote ya kubadilisha mfumo huo wa mafunzo ya wanajeshi, hivi kwamba mtu yote anaweza kuwa chochote pale kwa jeshi, kutoka ranki ya chini mpaka kule juu. Ya pili pia, ingawaje tunapata mwaliko, zamani miaka 3 hivi tulinyimwa mwaliko pale kwetu Nakuru. Kuna training ya cadets For 4 years hatujapata mwaliko, lakini naomba sasa pengine tutaanza kupata mwaliko. Tunapoenda katika ile siku ya pass out, tulikuwa tunaona kuna wanajeshi wengine kutoka Uganda na nchi zingine za majirani. Na ile swali lilikuwa tunaulizana, pengine kwa sasa tuko marafiki na nchi jirani, na baadaye pengine hatujui itakuwa namna gani. Je, pengine baadaye tukiwa na fujo, inaweza kuwa hawa ndio wale wanatumika kuja kupata zile zinatoaje siri za nchi na kuweza, pengine hata si wanafunzi tu, labda wanakuja kwa mambo mengine, na pengine kesho kukiwa na tafaruku kati ya sisi na majirani wetu, wale ndio watakuwa wanapeana, pengine ama ni ile tu ni mfumo wa East African Community ambayo wanaleta wanajeshi pamoja, wanaweza, na tunaona mpaka wanapewa mpaka zawadi. Asante.
Yes, Mheshimiwa Duaele.
Thank you, Chairman. Honorable Junet, yes, I was the first and the longest serving majority leader. That I agree with you. I also agree with you that in the legislature, every laws that are passed, some are controversial, some are easy to pass, and I'm sure if God gives you an opportunity, one day you become the leader of majority. It's a very difficult job, which I served longest. On the security laws, I think there was good public participation. The few sections that we felt, that the country felt was not fair, I think the judiciary has rectified it and declared it unconstitutional. The one on the Inspector General of Police, that also went through public participation, went through committees. I hope you are a member of that committee. And I tried to scan the Hansard. I didn't see you opposing it. That time, Honorable Jacob Midio was the leader of majority, and I remember him supporting it. You are leader. On the cyber crime, I can't remember.
Member of the committee.
Yeah, but it passed. And I am sure, Mr. Speaker, you allow me on a light touch. Honorable Junet was also very powerful the last 3 months, the last 3 years. And if I am asked to say the many draconian or unconstitutional things he has did with his partners, that will be for another day, not for my vetting. But just because I said on a light touch.
I know, but Mr. You're honorable.
Because the speaker,
my day will come for vetting. Today we are vetting him.
Yes.
Now we can raise those issues when he's vetting
me. He's vetting you in advance.
So I'm very sorry because I'm vetting him in advance.
A light touch.
On a light touch, I said. So, Mr. Speaker, I think my security laws and that of the Inspector General are lesser crimes than than the one just on the political parties amendment bill. Mr. Speaker, on Lake Victoria, I think I answered that question. It is just like the one of Migingo. Now we have an MOU, KDF have an MOU with the Uganda Defense Forces, and the boundary committee is handling, and the International Boundaries Office at the Office of the President. Now that we have an active, sober, energetic president and a workaholic president, a lot of the many issues Kenyans were facing, I can assure you will be resolved, including you will fish without no hindrance under the leadership of William Ruto. People will fish, farmers will have fertilizer, and cattle farmers, herders, pastoralists will have peace to herd their cattle. That I can assure you. Because that is what we stand for as a coalition. Honorable Mukami, yes, the House passed the Veterans Bill just before we went on Saturday, I think in May. Now Kenya Defense Forces and the Ministry of Defense is preparing the regulations. The advisory board already has been put in place to make sure that our veterans, those who are not doing very well, their children, in that law, their children's school fees will be paid, their medical bill will be taken care of, and the regulations will be coming to the House soon once we form the committee on the relevant committee. So that bill is in place. On the terminal ill, I said we have a wellness center We are now building a number of hospitals have been built, and we're taking care of them. Honorable Wanyonyi, yes, the wall in Mandera, that is a practice that was picked from other jurisdictions. It was happened in the U.S., between U.S. and Mexico. It is in Israel, is in Egypt, is in Pakistan. I think once if this House approves me, then we'll review. But still, KDF has put over 19 fortified bases along our border with Somalia for surveillance and for deterrence to make sure that our country is secure. And in the last 3 years, our country was very, very secure to the good work being done by Kenya Defense Forces. Honorable Gikaria, yes, we have Eldoret where we train our servicemen. We have Lanet where we train cadet. We have the National Defense College where not only Kenya but even the region send their top of officers. It's a prime college in the region. I'm sure the Defense Committee has visited. And then we now have the National Defense College. And we want to have our country to be a hub. And when they come even from other countries, they pay. The way we have Kenya School of Monetary Studies is a school of its kind in the region. Kenya School of Government, Kenya Revenue Authority, and I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, under your leadership, you will enhance the Parliamentary Institute, where we want to tap the talent in our country from neighboring countries to send. So, but there is always, Honorable Gikaria, career progression in KDF. Nakuru Academy, you have been denied. You know the reason why you have been denied. I want to confirm to you that not only me, the Commander-in-Chief will allow each and every leader to be given access in his area when the president or anybody in government is there. We were in Laikipia over the weekend, and I'm sure members, the governor, the senator, the women rep, and members of parliament from that region, all of them are with us. So that was why you were denied, because you were not, I think, politically correct, I may say. But I want to say it to all. Things have changed. As Honorable Juliet said, there's freedom. So even if we go to other areas where we will serve the people of Kenya, and leaders must be respected, whether from the MCA to the highest office. Leaders must be respected, and that is why I think those of us who have served in politics and in leadership, our officers will be very open to you. You will see a change. Mr. Speaker, I think I have finished.
You've exhausted those.
Yes.
Now, Naisula, Koech, and Mule.
Thank you, Chair.
And we'll conclude with the Deputy Speaker.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And to the nominee, I strongly believe that for us to deal with cattle rustling in this country, once and for all, we have to actually treat it as terrorism. Yeah? And we need to deal with it decisively and holistically. And so apart from only dealing with it from a security perspective, from a development angle, how do you think we can use the military to open up these areas, especially on opening up of the roads, so that we can have easy, accessible, fast and effective response? And lastly, what measures or options will you recommend in the inclusion of young people who haven't gone to school but are actually known sharpshooters? I think you need them in the military.
Honorable Duaele, my question will be on our Kenyan military has largely been respected because of how we operate. But there was an incident just during the election. There's been an allegation that one senior military officer was involved in trying to moderate the election. It is something that doesn't augur well with the military. We'll want to find out from you so that in future we do not have such incidences where military officers are used to execute political assignments.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Mine is going to the nominee, Honorable Duaele. You are aware we are living in a region where it's very volatile within our neighbors, and they have serious internal security challenges. And as you are aware, you are getting into a ministry whereby we have even elevated the National Defense College to a university, whereby quite a number of neighbors would wish to come and do training and do programs and exchange programs within Kenya. My fear and my concern is very clear, Honorable Duaele. How are we going to make sure that the people who come for training in Kenya, and especially from the regions whereby we are not very sure of, they will be vetted, they will be looked at to make sure that they don't carry away our secrets, so that in case they need to be mischievous, you will be in position to approve them early enough. That gives us the concern of what you have said about the tweet from Uganda. It's not just a tweet to look at from defense perspective. It is a threat to the Kenyan sovereignty, and it must be dealt with in a manner whereby it's not an issue of a cup of tea. It's an issue where it takes the 50 million Kenyans' lives into a scare. And I'd wish if you can elaborate on this and give us a plan. And I served with you in the appointment committee. We vetted Honorable General Kaiseri here. And one answer he gave us, and the meeting was over, he'll not tell us in front of the cameras what he intends to do on issues of security and defense. So what you think is preview, don't say it.
Last, in this batch, the Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Duaele, I see you've tackled all the questions quite well, except I have one that I would like to hear from you. What is your view on the current recruitment methodology being used to recruit cadets to the military? The current methodology is where they check the height, the dental structure, the physique, the weight, whether they can do a 100-meter dash. Never mind that those who are checking the dental structure are not dentists, as opposed to having more modern methodologies of measuring their ability using objective measuring tools like psychometric tests and even a mental evaluation, because we know that a lot of them sometimes don't cope and they eventually get into mental illnesses as a result of the fact that they didn't really have the competence and the emotional ability to be able to take up the job. What's your view? Will you keep the same method, or you have some ideas of how to transform that? And also the issue, the fact that the military doesn't recruit at cadet level people with disabilities or people with various disabilities. Yet sometimes, even if someone is on a wheelchair, they're probably a brilliant IT expert, and it's a skill that is required in the military. Again, how is that as a human rights issue? Thank you.
I'll also ask you one or two small questions. You may recall, Honorable Duaele, that through the African Union security architecture, it was designed to set up standby regional forces, East African standby force, West African, Central Africa, Southern Africa, and so on, for rapid deployment in helping deal with security concerns within those regions. Now, the East African one has not quite taken off because of budgetary issues and other things. As Defense Minister, how are you going to engage Parliament to give you a budget line, and how are you going to convince other defense ministers in the region to do the same so that we can actualize this force that can help deal with security challenges in our neighbors that have challenges like South Sudan, Somalia, and others. The second and last, during recruitment, and these members of parliament may attest to this, we see some very unhealthy discrimination processes. If you are short, you can't go to the army. We see recruits being asked to open their mouths and see whether one tooth is missing, or if you have discolored teeth, or things, or if you have a scar on your back, things that really have no bearing in your capacity to act as a military officer. How are you going to deal with this? Because if a child at birth had a scar and has grown through life, gone to school properly, why should that scar be a deterrent in joining the army?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chairman, let me start with Honorable Sula. Yeah, cattle rustling has been pandemic and chronic problem within the security architecture in our country. And I remember one time we wanted to amend the law and put it under the penal code. I don't think we have reached a stage where we should put them and categorize them under terrorism. And if you look at the Terrorism Act, the Speaker and Chair and members, I don't think cattle rustling falls within that. Cattle rustling just needs a committed multi-security agency, a committed political will, a committed government that will make sure roads are open, development are taken to those regions, and culprits are dealt with. And even use Article 241, Sub-Article 3(2), C, as Honorable Raso has said. And this government is ready to do that. Secondly, more fundamentally, I think Kenya Defence Forces or the Ministry of Defence will set up bases and camps, serious camps, in those regions to deal with cattle rustling. And I can assure you, Honourable Member and people watching me, that it will not be business as usual under the leadership on the Commander-in-Chief, Honourable William Ruto. It will not be. Secondly, I don't know, this civilian sharpshooter, where did he learn this skill? That self, becomes an issue. So how do you employ somebody already who is a sharpshooter? He must have learned that skill illegally, and But I think during the Moist time, there was a provision that, and I think it will help in the cattle rustling, a special recruitment criteria in some regions of our country, where you can even pick people who have gone up to class 8 or have not gone to school. We need to mop up those young people in that region who are becoming victims of cattle rustling and fine. But that is a policy that we will bring to the House and from the defense. So we will discuss with the Commander-in-Chief. It will be discussed at the National Security Council chaired by him, and I'm sure we'll find a solution. Honorable Koech, the military have a place. They have a place under Article 241, Kenya Defence Forces Act. They have a place under the KDF Act. And the military, or our security agents, have no place in the democratization and in the election of our country. I don't want to be very fair to the gentleman who was there, but from my reading of the Constitution, I think that was not only him. All and his colleagues who went there is similar to what happened in the U.S., the Capitol Hill invasion. That was an affront on democracy. You cannot circumvent the will of the people. The will of the people must be respected. So that is a matter, I think, for the Commander-in-Chief, and that is a matter for the people of Kenya and the Constitution. And I'm sure once you approve me, because the Constitution says our defense forces must not be involved in political partisan. They must be professional. They cannot engage in things outside their mandate. So it is not only that officer. He has not used, and if I was him, I should have just declined. But I think the environment at that time was not conducive. I mean, it was a very bad environment. Maybe he's a victim of the political environment at that time. But going forward, I think our military, our police, our national security organs, they have their place, and they must read the Article 4 of the Constitution. Kenya is a democratic multi-party state. So the will of the people, nobody, including the incumbent, can overturn. And I think that I'll stop it there. Honorable Mule, you talked about, yes, the issue of our neighbors. Even our soldiers go to one of the best colleges in the world, Stanford and in UK, Royal College. So our neighbors coming to our National Defense College is part of the practice worldwide. And what they are taught is what is taught in other military institutions. They are not exposed to our hardware. They are not exposed to our strategies. They are not exposed to our how we run our military. So we are very safe. And finally, the Kenya Defense Forces and the National Security Council will always, under the Constitution, they will explore diplomacy, and war will be the last option. So we usually deal with the diplomacy, make sure that ourselves and the region is safe. Yeah, the Deputy Speaker raised the issue of recruitment. I think one of the issues that I have to grapple with, if this House approves me, is the issue of recruitment. That is the elephant in the room. I mean, in all my 15 years, Mr. Speaker, is how recruitment is done. You know, people run, about 100 of them, and in the evening you are told there are some people who are not in the field who are picked. I mean, you know, it's good to say it. So there's about a lot of discontentment in terms of recruitment. But I think world over, we must have the criteria of physical fitness. I mean, if you are 34 and Kanoraso will agree with me. If you are to go to training and your weight is 35, and in the training you are going to carry a bag of 40, then you will die. And so KDF doesn't want to recruit people, and at the end of the day, the person. So they have to look at the physical fitness. That's everywhere. The training is very vigorous. The training is tough. So it's not. We can't just pick. They can't just pick anybody. So they must pick the best of the best in terms of physical fitness. Even for the cadet, the same. The issue of do we integrate people with disability? I think it's a matter for discussion. It's a matter that the Kenyan people, in consultation with the Defense Ministry and National Security Council, to discuss. Speaker, you have raised a very good point. I mean, this stand regional force for rapid deployment was agreed on. But Mr. Speaker, as a former foreign minister, you'll agree with me that a lot of countries
when I was chairing the African Security Council.
Yes. Even the peace security organ of the AU. But you are aware, as a former foreign minister, that many times countries default on their contribution, not only to stand by regional force, but even to IALA. At one time, Mr. Speaker, we had agreed even our members to IALA should be part of our parliament in terms of salary and remuneration. Because they can stay for 3 months without getting salary. So I think it's not, that is, countries don't want to commit themselves in paying their part of share and remittance. But I think ourselves from Kenya, they have a budget line, and we have been remitting our bit to the East Africa Stand Force. Yeah, again, the Speaker, you talk about recruitment. So recruitment is coming in. Is a matter that I think I should pick it up. Must be an area that needs serious reforms, very, very serious reforms. We need to know, because I have asked, and the KDF Act stipulates that the slots given to every sub-county is based on the number who are in the force from that sub-county, based on the census. But you know, an ordinary person in Likoni, for example, doesn't know how many are in the force. So if they are given 3 slots, we need to have a fair distribution of the Kenya Defense Forces, even for security purpose. We should not have a situation that one region or one community has is 20 or 30% of the forces. It's even risky. So the Constitution and the KDF Act stipulates very well that there must be consideration in terms of region, in terms of gender, in terms of ethnicity, in the recruitment of men and women to our forces. So I think we might not been doing that, and the recruitment, I'm sure the Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations, when they are formed, that is an area we need to reform. As Honorable Sholoi said, the height, the person checking, is he a dental expert? How many kilometers you need to run? Of course, we must get the best of the best physically. And Mr. Speaker, you know, when if you allow me, Mr. Speaker, I served in NYS, and Mr. Speaker, there used to be something called marksman. You know, the tall person used to be at the end. But these days, if you see parade, you'll find very short people. So I think even this short, I'm not saying, there are certain criteria, physical fitness that must be addressed to. But I'll take that as an area of reform, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Jeanette.
Just one rejoinder. With your permission. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to tell the nominee that he is very good in politics, but as you know that in this presidential system now, in the event that is vetted by this committee and passed by the National Assembly, shall we be seeing him again politicking in FINROLs, in Arambe places, or he will resort back, or he's going to perpetuate the bad manners of the previous CSS who were politicking outside, and people have been complaining about that, or he's going to confine himself to the ministry, or he's going to give me problems in the mosque now politicking, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman.
Honorable Jeanette should be the last to ask such a question, because we saw you encouraging and comforting ministers during campaign rallies, some who are occupying the position you are vetting him for.
Mr. Speaker, now that is bad manners. Is he going to stop? Is he going to stop?
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, you have really have to be, because unfortunately, Honorable Jeanette now is on the other side. But I want to confirm to this committee that I will not be like my predecessor, with a lot of respect, who was in the camp of Honorable Jeanette. I will, of course, sell a government agenda. I will go to weddings and funerals, even though the Muslim funerals take only 5 minutes and 10 minutes, and you're not even allowed to speak. But I'll go to my colleagues' funerals, and I will sell the policy and the agenda of government. I will not politic. But you are a classical example. The Speaker said, the Speaker is the wrong person to ask me that question. Should have been Honorable Dawood or Honorable Mishi. Yes, but I think the Constitution and the Act, Mr. Speaker, is also very clear that ministers can sell government agenda. All that we were telling the previous ministers was to respect the institution of the office of the Deputy President and not to insult and not to, cabinet collective responsibility. That was, but we were not against. In 2017, ministers were campaigning, but in 2022, something else happened. I don't think our country will go back to, and even, I don't think I'll behave like some of the ministers. I will respect Parliament, Mr. Speaker, and I will. I'm one person who believes that the oversight role of Parliament is central to our Constitution under Article 95.
Thank you, Honourable Honourable Duaele. Junet, not yet. Maybe as will come 10 years from now. I now give you 3 minutes to say what you wish to say to the committee before we release you.
Mr. Speaker, unlike my predecessors, I know the hard work is the report writing and the plenary. I really want to indulge this committee that in their wisdom they feel fit that I serve the people of Kenya in the new position. Speaker, I am humbled that I have been in the corridors of Parliament, and if I am approved, I'm going to miss Parliament. Speaker, just like General Kaiseri asked, allow me as a former majority emeritus to come to Parliament and have lunch if I'm around here. Allow members, by changing the standing orders, allow members to come and answer questions. I remember during 10th Parliament, Mr. Speaker, you were with me. The most interesting thing in Parliament is when the voters hear their members, elected members, asking questions on the floor, and the person answering is from the executive. Mr. Speaker, and finally, I want to most sincerely thank you and the committee for carrying this constitutional duty in line with the Public Parliamentary Appointments Act and in line with Article 152 of the Constitution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and Chairman.
For your comfort as a CPA member, you have a lifelong access to Parliament, and nobody will restrict you. Thank you very much, Honourable Duaele. We wish you well. You don't leave behind your original certificates. The clerks will facilitate you to have them after cross-checking with the copies. We will now request you to take your leave, and the sergeant, upon Honourable Duaele leaving, will have to bring in the Honourable ALFRED Nganga MUTUA, Doctor. Nganga.
Oh, it's different from the